Welcome into this edition of Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. Hopefully your bellies are full after Thanksgiving, and hopefully the 76ers somehow magically get right against the Nets. But I know there's been a vibe amongst the fan base about how this year feels a whole heck of a lot like last year. We'll break it all down and more in this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the number one sports podcast network out there. So please enjoy. Also, this particular episode is brought to you by the great people of FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app by going to FanDuel.com, where new customers can get $5 when you bet your first $5 bet and win. You get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. Keith Pompey, your 76ers beat writer, Marc Farzetta, talking sports with you here in Philadelphia. Keith, when it comes to the Sixers, one of the things I've seen a couple of people comment on during the show and after the show, all that, is how this 76ers season gives them last season vibes. Do you get that in covering the team?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think the only difference is that, you know, the 76ers started the season 4-0, right? I mean, that's the major difference. I mean, when we look at last season's vibe, it was one of those things where the 76ers were waiting on Joel Embiid to see how healthy he could be because of knees, and there was a lot of lack of transparency, just saying, hey, well, his knees are messed up, right? And then we looked at Paul George. You know, Paul George played more games than he did this year, but it's also one of those things they were waiting on him. So we look at it. So they started off 4-0. Now we look at it. The Sixers have lost 8 of their last 13 games. Maxey is having to carry the load just like he did last year. And, you know, PG is questionable tonight and Joel Embiid is out. So this is very similar, you know what I mean? And the crazy part was at this particular time last year, we kept saying, okay, we just got to wait. We just got to wait. We got to wait until they get things together. And right about now, the 76ers have the 10th best record in the East. They're a play-in team. And last year they were about the same. So, you know, before they start tearing things down and start tanking. So when you look at that, yes, this season is extremely similar to last season.
I agree on all points. The only thing that I have as a difference from last year to this year, and the biggest thing is, as you mentioned, 4 wins in a row to start out the season this year versus last year, where it took them 19 games to get 4 wins on the season. The only difference is last year, I feel like there was hope for this year. Like last year, when you realize Joel Embiid is not going to play more than 19 games, and realize Paul George is going to have to get shut down at some point, when you realize Tyrese Maxey is, just going off in terms of being a volume scorer, which isn't the greatest compliment in the world, and you realize he's going to have to get shut down, not only because he's the only option, but because he got an injury as well. I had hope for this year. I'd hope that after tanking, you would have a third overall, the top 6 pick, really, if we're being real about last year, turned out being the 3rd overall pick. There was hope that you'd be a better basketball team this year. So this year it feels a lot more disappointing because I didn't expect a lot from Joel Embiid through last year. I didn't expect a lot from Paul George last year, if we're being real. So last year I had hope for what this year could bring, and the fact that the Sixers, after the first 4 games of the season, have hit a huge wall, and no bigger wall than what you've seen from VJ Edgecombe, obviously, that really dashes hope and really expectations overall from the year. And I know a lot of people could also look back on it and say, what do you mean feels like last year? This feels like every year for the last 25 years, really, you know? But the one thing I will say is Tyrese Maxey has absolutely stepped up to being the number one guy. If there's one guy that I can't be disappointed in, quite frankly, impressed with, it's Tyrese Maxey. Last year to this year feels like he is a guy that is absolutely ready to be a team's number one guy.
Yeah, he seems that way. It just seems that, but he also needs some help, right? because he's ready. He's showing that he can be the guy. The problem is though, like when you have, and I don't care who it is, I don't care who it is. When you have one guy and he's a guard and he doesn't, and his game is predicated on speed and doing a lot of other things. But when you go out there and you're the only person, after a while, it's hard for anyone to win. You know what I'm saying? Like if you take, like let's face it, Michael Jordan on those young Chicago Bulls teams when he was young, before, Scottie Pippen got into his own and all that. What did we see? We saw Jordan scoring a lot of points and the team was struggling. Like they couldn't go far in the playoffs. But as he built the team around him, they got better. Right now, Maxey is dealing with that. It's kind of like, the crazy part is, and we want to talk about how great an effort it was. But when we sit back and you think about it, he needed to score 54 points to beat a Milwaukee Bucks team who's in the midst of a 5-game losing streak right about now. Like, we didn't even think about that heading into the game, that they were struggling, right? So, you talk about all that. It was 30 shots. He shot 18 for 30, which was pretty good. But he needed 30 shots and the game was overtime, but 54 points to beat that team, right? Without Giannis and all these other guys. So, that's one way of definitely wearing the brother down. Like, you know what I mean? He needs to get some help. And hopefully they'll get help on the way, they claim, but the improvement, the difference is Tyrese Maxey. You're right. The difference is Tyrese Maxey has shown that he can be an elite player. I mean, it's hard to name 4 other players in the league right now that's having a better season than Tyrese Maxey. You're muted.
Hi, and I'm back. A lot of people in the house, so just,
that's what I figured.
Company's still partying, man. The party never stops in the Farzetta household. Something I want to point out from last year to this year. Right now, the Sixers are shooting 46% from the floor. That's this year. 46% versus last year, 45%. Like that, that's shocking to me that they were even that high last year. As far as points per game, they're about averaging about 8 more points per game this year than last year. Just 8 more points. I thought it would be at least 10, but 8. And then they're allowing this year 3 more points per game than they did last year. Allowing 3 more points per game than last year. And of course, the difference record-wise, 9-8 right now versus at this point in the season, 17 games in, they were 3-14. Just to give you some numbers to put it in perspective from last year to this year. When we come back, I do want to get into those the injury news here surrounding the Sixers, especially with VJ Edgecombe, and also what it means that Joel Embiid is going to be out for this game tonight against the Brooklyn Nets. We'll break that down and more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Right now, let me tell you about DoorDash and how great DoorDash is, ladies and gentlemen. DoorDash is fantastic. You got to take advantage of all DoorDash has to offer right now. Like, for instance, let's get into it right now. DoorDash has Dash Pass. And right now with the NBA season heating up, they got a great offer for you right now, including the Bag Drop from DoorDash, the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA. And they're celebrating with this bag drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in the game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. You're talking about a player-inspired drip that you actually want, like exclusive gear, for instance. You absolutely love DoorDash and Dash Pass. And right now with promo code NBA50, use that the next time someone scores 50 points in a basketball game, in an NBA game, and you get 50% off your DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code NBA50. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashinYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Before we go any further, Keith, Thanksgiving go well in the Pompey household? You guys,
It was
you guys
fun.
have a good day?
It was fun. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, you know me, man. I just like relaxing, so it was a relaxing day. You know, for me.
Very chill. Good. We had our oven die midway through the day. Fortunately, like everything was cooked already, which is probably what killed it. And then we relied on the grill and some stovetop and a little air fryer action, and we got it going again. But we hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving as well. We had a little bit more excitement than we anticipated in the Farzetta household. When it comes to injury status for tonight, we had talked about VJ Edgecombe with the calf injury. Let's start out with him. What's the status for tonight against the Nets?
You know, VJ is out, and you know, it's one of those things where we talked about yesterday. You know, I felt like that's the best way to go, right? You know, when I saw him, what was it? When did they play? They played on Tuesday, and he wasn't in the locker room, but when they went to chapel before the game, he left the back room. I'm assuming the training room or whatever room he was back there chilling at, and he walked through, and you could just tell he had like I want to say like it looked like a slight limp or like a hitch or whatever. You could tell that the leg was still bothering him a little bit, or the calf was. So to me, it's like, you know, what they say, I looked it up, you know, you could take about a week off or 1 to 2 weeks off for like that grade 1, and it's a strain. And then it's one of those things where I feel like, you know, there's no need in having him play against the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, let's face it, the Sixers are missing a lot of players. The Brooklyn Nets have 3 good players on their team right now, you know, and 2 of them are out. So it's one of those things where the 76ers, if they can't beat the Brooklyn Nets without VJ Edgecombe and Joel Embiid and PG, then they got a problem. Like, the problem is bigger than what we think. So yeah, it's good for him to just take off and rest up a little bit.
Now, earlier you mentioned Joel Embiid not playing tonight. We had speculated the other day about how we'll be pissed off. Well, I mean, we weren't speculating. We were just saying how we'd be a little puzzled. That's the way I'll put it. We'll be puzzled at the idea of Joel Embiid playing versus the Nets and then not playing against the Atlanta Hawks in the 76ers next game, which comes up Sunday. That game is going to be in South Philadelphia at 6 o'clock against the Hawks. So that's not going to be the case. He is held out of this game against the Nets. He's not playing in Brooklyn tonight. Does that mean that he's going to be up and running by Sunday against the Hawks? What does this mean that he's out tonight?
I mean, it's tough to say what anything means with the 76ers right about now, right? I mean, we're talking about a team that had him listed at a guy. Nick Nurse came out one day and said, you know, Joel Embiid was cleared and he was a full participant at practice. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, later on, he's listed as questionable on the scouting report. He participates in the shoot around, and next thing you know, he's out. So it's hard to say what it is, but when you look at it, you would think, like we said, it would be more ideal for him to miss this game, because when you look at it, Joel Embiid, even when he was healthy, he did not play in games. He didn't play in back-to-backs, nor did he, bigger than that, he didn't play in games that had fewer than 48 hours in between games. So when you look at it, they play on Friday, but then they have another game on Sunday against the Atlanta Hawks, right? So what's that? That's what, 24 hours in between, or not 24, but, you know, it's like 2 days. So he doesn't have the 48 hours of rest to do that. And then after that, they play against the Washington Wizards on Tuesday. So, you know, you look at it like, where do you need Joel? I mean, if you're going to go by the games that are more important, you know, I need Joel for the Atlanta Hawks game, right? I also need Joel for when Golden State comes to town next Thursday on the 4th, right? Now, I can live with him not taking that or not playing against Milwaukee on the 5th, but I definitely need him for those 2 games. And oh, by the way, the Lakers are coming to town on December the 7th. So these are games that I really would love to have Joel play in if he's able to, if the schedule will permit it, or if his leg permits it, or knees permit it. So to me, again, you never know, because to me, it evidently the knees are worse than they were leading on to be, or because he's been out for, this is going to be his 9th game that he misses, right? 8 with the knee soreness, but whatever is causing that soreness and inflammation basically is worse than what they thought. So it's hard to say he's definitely going to come back. And even if he does come back, it's hard to say how long he's going to play, as in regards to an extended amount of games.
Right. To go back to last year versus this year, and the word I used was hope. Last year, there was hope for this year. Being that Joel Embiid was ready for the start of the season, being that you saw him try to hit full go in terms of running the floor against the Toronto Raptors in that game, that you saw him drop, 29 points and all that. And then you haven't seen him play since. He looked like in that game he was trying to go to that next level. Like he was trying to go full bore, run the floor, have a little bit of quickness to his step and all that. The fact that he hasn't played since then, even if he does come back, it just leads me to believe now, Keith, that there's really no hope in terms of Joel Embiid even getting back to a consistent all-star level of play. Like, I'm not even, forget about MVP. I think that's just done. But when it comes to even an all-star level of play for him with any consistency, I don't think he can hold up. Like, that's the sad reality of this season if you're really comparing it from last year to this year. Last year, all right, you know what? He does get healthy. He shuts it down. Read the ESPN article about him taking control and holding himself accountable when it comes to the rehab and not trusting anybody else but himself. And then see him go out there and try it, and now the other knee's acting up. It really just makes me think it's the end when it comes to Joel Embiid and any sort of consistency that he can give this Sixers lineup. And that's not something that I'm at all rooting for. Obviously, I want him to be great. I want this team to be great. But if you're being real, as you always say, keeping it 100, that's the unfortunate reality of Joel Embiid's situation right now.
Yeah, and I agree. And this whole situation is really, it's kind of, I'm not going to say mind-boggling, but it's real. Like, for instance, in order for, everybody kept saying heading into the season, how good are the Sixers going to be? How good are the Sixers going to be? And we kept saying, look, they can be a bad team or they could be a team that's going to be a contender. But all that was predicated on Joel Embiid's health and Paul George's health, right? So we look at it now and you say to yourself, like, man, we're still trying to figure out how good they're going to be, because we don't know if Joel's going to come back or when he's going to come back. We don't know about PG. Like, PG only played in 3 games. He looked like a solid, third option, so to speak. But then again, you ask yourself, well, is that going to take away from what Kelly Oubre is doing? How are they both going to look when they're playing together, Paul George and Kelly Oubre, right? Because that's the role. They're playing similar roles now. But the Joel Embiid thing is the main thing. Now, here's something else to think about. So if you talk to the 76ers, they'll say the difference is that we feel good about this year because we got younger and we got more athletic, right? Well, the thing is, if they don't make noise, it's going to look bad because they don't have a first round pick. Now, they'll come back and say, but we got in the Jared Butler trade where they gave up their first round pick that they had, we got 4 second rounders. And you can look at it and you can always say, the pick that they had in the first round may not have been that good, because what it was the least favorable of 3 first round picks, one owned by the Clippers, the other one owned by the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the third one owned by the Houston Rockets. So you can say that. But right now, when you're looking at the Clippers and you're seeing how this team is having injury concerns as well, how they're having a tough time, getting it together, and they're relying on an old James Harden to keep them afloat, you're saying to yourself, like, you mean to tell me you gave up that first round pick for Jared Butler, who at the time was a two-way player, and then also who was a guy that you guys waived this summer to create a roster spot for someone else, right? So when we look at that, you say to yourself that Joel looks about the same. Yeah, you started off 4-0. You're saying you're going to get younger, but this could have been a valuable first round pick that you could have had to either trade, or this draft is supposed to be better than last year's draft. So you don't even have that. So you're going to lose one draft pick to Washington, and then the other draft pick that you had, you were expected to get, has to go to OKC. So it just seems like the Sixers put themselves in a bigger bind than they were in last year.
Great. Let me just real quick. Kelly Oubre, have you heard anything about his progression through injury or anything like that? Nothing? Okay.
It's still about the same. I mean, they said he was going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So, we have yet to get to that plateau yet. I mean, I think he's just getting his treatment, doing everything that he has to do. So, yeah, the Kelly Oubre. I mean, I guess a good part is that Adem Bona is coming back. And, when I told you I saw him before the last game, and he looked fine. Like, he was walking with a bounce. He didn't have any tape on his ankles. So I guess, they just wanted to let him see what he can do, and give him an extra game. So he should be fine to come back and play.
Sounds good to me. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about, look, this is a Hail Mary of what do you call it? A Hail Mary of optimism. But we'll ask the question whether or not you can have a get-right game against the Brooklyn Nets to help this team pull through in the near future here against a rough schedule that they have. This is Locked On 76ers and Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Back after this. Right now, let me tell you about FanDuel, ladies and gentlemen. FanDuel is where it's at. Go to FanDuel.com right now to download the FanDuel app to get started, where when you make your first $5 bet, that's right, make your first $5 bet, and if you win, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Even if you missed the start of a game or you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything, like who will score next, to also fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for an even bigger shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything and every game that much more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And once again, right now, FanDuel customers, new FanDuel customers, can bet $5, and if that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. So head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. That's FanDuel.com to sign up and play. At FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Get right games. We use the term a lot in football, Keith. Unfortunately, it's not like you're going to play the Brooklyn Nets and all of a sudden Joel Embiid's got 25-year-old knees again, It's not going to happen like that. But when it comes to a team that is trying to progress and you are getting a player back, hopefully like a Adem Bona, and Tyrese Maxey continues to try to get better and quite frankly get better, what can the – I know they're not going to all of a sudden be a championship caliber team after this game, but what can you get right against a 3-win team like the Brooklyn Nets?
I mean, the only thing this game does is build confidence, I think, right? Make the guys feel good about themselves. I know it sounds crazy because it's still early, but to me, to keep the guys up, to keep them motivated, I think it's a must-win game. You know what I mean? Because I'm looking at this, and after we talk about get right,
right.
What can you prove on? Like you play the Brooklyn Nets tonight, and then on Sunday you play the Atlanta Hawks, which is going to probably be a tough game. And then after that, you play the Washington Wizards, which is another game I think the Sixers need to win. And then they're going to have a tough back-to-back against, and I know Milwaukee is struggling, but it's going to be a tough back-to-back against the Golden State Warriors at home next Friday, and then next Saturday at Milwaukee. And then after that, 2 days later, they have the Lakers. So to me, it's like you want to basically, especially where you are, you want to get at least these go 2-1 in the next 3 games, because after that, it's going to be tough, right? It really is. So the thing that they could work on, and what I'm talking about is building confidence, because, you know, the last game that we saw Quentin Grimes go out there against them, and he looked like the second coming of Isaiah Thomas, just getting dimes, or Jason Kidd, or, you know, this and that. He was just getting a bunch of dimes. We saw Kelly Oubre play at an extremely high level, score 20-something points in the first quarter. And, you know, then they come back and, you know, we realize, well, man, you know, Quentin is a great dribbler, but he still has some stuff to work on. Like, he was getting stripped. He was turning the ball over after that. But it just lets you know just how bad the Brooklyn Nets were. So with that being said, it's kind of like, to me, it's a confidence boost, because there are some bad teams in the league, and the Brooklyn Nets are among them.
Certainly. You use the term a must-win game. I'll use the term you better win game. Like, you know, it's like you guys better go out there against the Nets, and you better handle your business, because, as you said earlier, and you couldn't be more right about it, you shouldn't have to have a Paul George or a Joel Embiid playing at a decent level, or, you know, really anybody else. You don't need those guys to hopefully control the game against the Nets, similarly to the way the Orlando Magic controlled the game against you, really from the second quarter on, in their 41-point loss to the Magic. So I'll put this down as a you better win game, and you better win by a lot. I'll just say that. Keith, always great talking Sixers with you as per usual. Make sure you guys like and subscribe on the Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. And hey, don't just watch us. Make sure you watch our friend Josh Lloyd break it all down in Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball hosted by Josh Lloyd wherever you get your podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. Josh Lloyd breaks it all down from a fantasy perspective to not only help you win your league, but also make you the smarter NBA fan. So make sure you guys like and subscribe across all Locked On platforms. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. Once again, we hope that you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. As far as Black Friday, kickoff with the Eagles at 3 o'clock. Eagles win this game 27-20. There's my prediction for that. All right. We'll be back with you guys on Monday to break it all down with the 2 games the Sixers have this weekend, including tonight against the Nets, and then Sunday at 6 o'clock against the Atlanta Hawks. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers. Be back with you guys on Monday. See you then.